Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. My name is Evan McCauley, president of the club, and we are thrilled to have you joining us today. This meeting broadcast is available on HCTV as well as our Rotary of Hudson YouTube channel. Our club meets weekly at Laurel Lake for breakfast on Wednesday mornings from 7:15 to 8:30 a.m. Come out and join us for a meeting. We'd love to have you as a guest. To learn more about Rotary, our club, and the impact that we are having on the local community and world, please visit rotaryhudson.org. Enjoy the meeting today and be the inspiration.
Good morning, Rotarians and guests.
Good morning, Ron. Good morning, Ron.
Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. I'm Ron Strobel, the Sergeant at Arms. Our invocation this morning is by Jim Young.
Good morning, breakfast lovers, as Jimmy used to say. Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, teach us that even if we can't do great things, we can at least do great things, or small things, in a great way. May we always be sincere in our efforts to help others in need. For the food that nourishes our bodies, for the fellowship here that feeds our soul, for all good things, beautiful, which fill our lives, we give thanks today. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jim. And to lead us in the pledge and four-way test this morning, Bill Benoit.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, pledge allegiance first. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test, the things we think, say, or do. First,
Is this the truth?
second,
Is it fair to all concerned?
third,
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you.
Some reason or another, the eagle kind of turns his back on us every now and then. To lead us in song, Chris Barker.
Good morning, Rotarians and guests.
Good morning.
So, every morning it's like, what are we going to sing? So this morning I'm like, okay. This time of year, I think we all feel happy for so many reasons, spending time with family, grateful for so many things in our lives, and blessed. So I thought, let's sing if you're happy and you know it, but we'll do happy, grateful, blessed, and happy, okay? If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, then your face will really show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're grateful and you know it, clap your hands. If you're grateful and you know it, clap your hands. If you're grateful and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're grateful and you know it, clap your hands. If you're blessed and you know it, clap your hands. If you're blessed and you know it, clap your hands. If you're blessed and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're blessed and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Thank you, everybody.
That was really brave with this group. Before Evan comes up, there's one thing I wanted to talk about quickly with regard to the gala. If anyone has something that they're really involved with or feel could use some financial help, we are looking for a third beneficiary. We have Gift of Life as we always have for 10 or 12 years. We have the uncharted waters, what every senior needs to know before they go to college. And a couple of things that have come up as possibilities is another Lucas device for the 3rd ambulance at EMS. The other one is the Boy Scout cabin needs considerable work with replacing some rotting logs and rechinking. So those are 2 possibilities, but if somebody has a charity that they would like to bring forward, please contact either myself or Marilyn or Chris Barker. And then we want more than just a name, though. We would want to know what it would be going towards. And if you could do that during the month of January, we don't meet again until the 2nd Friday in January. So sometime in the next 3 weeks, if you come up with a great idea, please let one of us know. And now our president, Evan McCauley.
Thank you, Ron. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Rotary Wednesday. We're going to get started with our guest introductions. Chris Barker.
Good morning again, now that everyone's woken up after singing and clapping their hands. Okay, so other than our speakers today, I would like to introduce guests joining us for the second time. Keith Veers, joining us from Northwest Bank here in Hudson, and guest of Rich Warfield. So thanks for joining us again, Keith. Thank you.
And we're going to do things a little bit backwards today. We're going to have our club announcements at the end. So we're going to go right into our featured presentation. And Jim Ahern is going to introduce our guest speaker.
Great. Thank you. I like starting backwards in the morning. I always do. Tom Speaks is back, and I'm going to make a short introduction, and he agreed to come in today to fill in for an opening we did have because he has to get out and has another appointment, but he agreed to come in and do it. So Tom, those of you who remember, he's a co-owner with Don Poliak with the Impact Group in Hudson, a full-service marketing firm. He and his wife and his son Liam and his daughter Addie live in Hudson. He's authored 3 books: Hannibal the Forging, Lynn, Autumn, and third, Appreciology, the art and science of appreciation. And speaking of appreciology, it's appreciology. Appreciology. And speaking of that, we want to thank him for coming back and telling us the rest of the story. I always wondered how Hannibal didn't get any farther than where he did, so I guess we're going to find out now.
We're going to find out.
Tom?
Thank you. Thank you. How's everybody doing this morning? Good. Can you hear me? Yeah. All right. I want to begin by saying I think history teachers have the longest time have given history a bad rap. Do you ever have to deal with people?
Yes.
Once in a while? If you ever have to deal with people, I say to folks, read history. If you really want to understand people, read history. People have fundamentally not changed. We are the same people with the same motives, with the same behaviors. The technology has changed, that is all. Harry Truman, one of my most favorite politicians, most practical of politicians, when he was faced with a difficult problem, he got out old Plutarch. He would read the lives of Plutarch to figure things out. I say this to people all the time. If you want to know people, read history. That's my advocation. So, if you remember last time I told you the story of Hannibal Barca, the great Carthaginian general. Way wiki, woe to the conquered. If there was ever a lesson that the Romans learned, the Celts sacked Rome about 300 BC, and they made it very, very clear that whoever is conquered has no rights. Way wiki. This is something that was the very core of what it meant to be a Roman. So, I'm going to give you guys a brief recap. What we've got is Hannibal is a Carthaginian general. There were 2 superpowers, Carthage and Rome. Very much opposed each other. There's something called a Punic War. There were three Punic Wars. And as the first Punic War, Rome won. Pushed Carthage way back, and it really upset Rome. It really upset Carthage quite a bit. Carthage vowed vengeance. The son of Hamilcar Barca, Hannibal, decides he is going to invade Rome. If you remember from last time, boldly he takes an army all the way across across the Alps and into Italy. He began his trip to cross the Alps with 50,000 infantry and 9,000 cavalry. By the time he made it to Italy, he had 20,000 infantry and 6,000 cavalry. The rest had died on the way. They had died falling off cliffs, freezing to death, fighting Celtic tribes, horrific circumstances, but he made it to Italy. Against all odds, he made it to Italy. He had 37 elephants with him. He got every one of those elephants across. Think about when you have strategic objectives in your business. Clearly, one of Hannibal's strategic objectives was get the elephants across. The men are expendable. Get the elephants across, the men are expendable. That is no accident that happened. He arrives in Italy, total surprise. The Romans then face him. You got to understand, back in the day, although Carthage was a superpower, Rome was the power. Carthage then attacks in 3 battles. The Romans are absolutely destroyed. Trebia, Trasimene, and Cannae. Trebia and Trasimene, 20,000 Romans are killed in each battle. Cannae, 70,000 Romans are killed in one day. 70,000. Wrap your mind around 7. This is not artillery. These are not bullets. These are used, their swords were this long. Honest to gosh, they're not the big, they're the big swords. 70,000 men killed on an August day in one small plot. What did that look like? So now imagine, Rome is there. Imagine, we hear of our troops, a troop will or soldier will tragically be killed here and there. We hear about that. Imagine the trauma of an entire United States Army defeated, annihilated. Again and again, and the enemy, whoever is coming close to the United States, is getting closer. Again and again, United States armies are annihilated. That does not happen, right? That would be is just shocking to us. It was that shocking to the Romans. So now, Hannibal has just at Cannae, 70,000 Romans are dead. They're absolutely on their heels. Hannibal is close. Cannae is not that far away from Rome. Hannibal's general, Marhable, comes to him and says, we must march on Rome now. It's 216 BC. Now is the time. If we march on Rome now, we will take Rome. And Hannibal's genius cracks. He had been undefeated up to this point. He decides to not march on Rome. His strategy was that if he can destroy enough armies, the allies of Rome will come over to Carthage and there'll be no need to take Rome because Rome is heavily fortified. Enormous walls, and Hannibal calculates that if he tries to attack that city, it's too costly, he's not going to do it. So he decides to not attack Rome. And Marhable says, to the day you die, you will regret this decision. Now I'm going to put this to you, and I believe this with all my heart. Had Hannibal Barca in 216 BC marched on Rome after the Battle of Cannae, we would not be here today. We certainly wouldn't be speaking English. Our entire history would be changed. Rome would have fallen. If Rome fell, there would have been no Roman Empire. Without the Roman Empire, I would argue there'd be no Catholic Church. Without the Catholic Church, a lot of the Roman Empire, the fundamental aspects of the Roman Empire, the structure brought about the basics of the Catholic Church. Without the Catholic Church, we don't have Western civilization. Without Western civilization as we know it, we wouldn't be here. What do they speak in Spain? Spanish. Is Spanish derived from Celtic? They were all Celts in Spain. No, it's a Latin-based language. We would be speaking a Phoenician-based language. We would be speaking it's essentially a Semitic Phoenician-based, that was Carthage. The world as we know it would be entirely different had this man made the decision to march on Rome. But he didn't. He didn't. He decides instead he's going to wait for the Allies to fall, and they start. This is the most crushing defeat the Romans have ever faced. So great cities. Back in the day, all these different cities were fortified. Capua, which is the second greatest city in Rome, it goes over to Carthage. Like, we want to be on the side of the winner, we're going to go over to the side of Carthage. Syracuse, another major city in Sicily, they decide, you know what, we want to be on the winning side, we're going to go with Carthage. So Hannibal starts to go up and down Italy. He's going to try to make other people come over to his side, and you know what? The Romans never give up. The Romans lose battle after battle after battle. The Romans never lost a war. The Romans do not lose wars. They say, we are not giving up. Hannibal sends peace delegation to Rome, saying, let's have a negotiated peace. Rome said, we don't negotiate. Their main general, his name is Fabius Maximus. And you guys may have heard, any students of history here, General Washington, the Revolutionary War, practiced something called Fabian tactics. Washington learned early on that you can't face the British face to face because the British will destroy you. All Washington did was dog that army for 9 years, and the British got worn out. The Fabian decided the same thing in this. He would not engage Hannibal in a battle. Wouldn't do it because Hannibal would win. The Roman armies would shadow the Carthaginian armies, harassing them the entire time, and when the Carthaginians would try to fight, the Romans would back away. And it just wore them out, and all of a sudden Hannibal is going up and down into Italy, and he doesn't know what to do. While this is happening, there are Roman armies in Spain. The Roman armies are engaging, and the Roman armies are beginning to win in Spain. Now what happens, though, is time is passing. Hannibal can't bring the Romans to bear. They will not fight. He can't take Rome. He doesn't know what to do. As this is happening, the Roman armies are out. All of a sudden, the Romans recapture Capua that had betrayed the Romans. So Capua went over to the Carthaginians. The Romans captured again. The Romans know what to do with people that are traitors. They kill every last senator, and they sell every single person in Capua into slavery. Every single person. This is what happens if you betray Rome. Everybody's destroyed. They go into Syracuse. They take Syracuse. The Carthaginians can't help Syracuse, and they kill every man, woman, and child in Syracuse for betraying the Romans. You cannot wrap your noodles around the barbarity of these ages. This is what happens with Rome. So all this time is happening. While these things are, city after city is coming down, and now Hannibal has no idea what to do. You see, he has no alternative plan. His plan was, all I have to do is smash several Roman armies and they will come over. It didn't happen. This is very much like Hitler in World War II. If you think about Hitler, the Nazis in England. The Nazis smashed all of the continental armies. The British army was destroyed. All common sense was that the British, after the Nazi victories, would give up. And they didn't. And they had no alternative plan. Similarly here, no alternative plan. So what we have is in 211, major battles are happening. A Roman army was defeated in 211. And Publius Cornelius Scipio, the consul of the time, was killed. And this is kind of an interesting thing about Roman aristocrats. They have three names: Publius Cornelius Scipio, Gaius Julius Caesar. Three names. Romans are not very creative with the first name: Gaius, Sextus, Quintus. There's about 10 different names, right? The second name is the family lineage: Gaius Julius Caesar. Julius Julii is one of the most ancient families. He actually traced his lineage back to the gods. Actually, it was Aphrodite was one of his, if you can believe that, roll with it. Gaius Julius Caesar, and then the last piece was there's a branch of that name. So you know you're dealing with an aristocrat if they have three names. So Scipio, the father, was killed, and the Romans are they're upset about this. They elect, out of all precedent, Scipio's son, a 27-year-old Publius Cornelius Scipio, his son, who will later become Scipio Africanus, to become a general. He goes to Spain. He whips the Roman army into shape, absolutely drills them like crazy, and he marches. So now Hannibal is going up and down Rome. He can't bring the Romans to bear. Scipio is now over in Spain. This is the Carthaginian base. Scipio takes his army, newly trained army. He has thousands and thousands of men, and if you can believe the history books, he marches his army 500 miles in 7 days. 500 miles in 7 days. Think about this. There's no mechanic. You're marching troops. You have all your gear. You're moving forward. That's how fast. All the other Carthaginian armies were in the field. He makes a dash for New Carthage. This was their home. This is their base. That's where they had their money. That's where they had their supplies. Scipio takes New Carthage. Scipio, heavily walled city, totally outwits them. He takes New Carthage. Hannibal could not take Rome. Scipio takes New Carthage. Totally devastating. Now, the Romans are now beginning to have a little bit of the advantage. Scipio begins to, so years are going by now. People are in camps, they're doing their thing, years are going by. Scipio now, he now has the idea. What he's going to do is he's going to go for the jugular, man. He decides that if we're going to defeat Rome, he gets permission from the Senate, the Roman Senate. Scipio comes to North Africa. The Senate says, why are you going to North Africa? Why not come to Italy? Hannibal's in Italy. And Scipio answers with a reasoned argument, if I go to Africa, Hannibal's coming to us. So he goes to Africa with his army. Several years, Scipio is down here. He's trying to do different things, trying to bring him to battle. Once again, Hannibal has no idea what to do. He's going back and forth, just ravaging. Scipio has a couple different strategies here, and for a couple years he's difficult, has a hard time. But what he decides to do, and this is a ploy, he tells the Carthaginians, you know what? This war will never end. Let's talk peace. So the Carthaginians, who are now worn out, say, okay, let's talk peace. So he has them come. There are two huge camps. There's, if you can imagine, there's a Roman camp, which is 7 miles away. And then you've got Numidians and Carthaginians who are allies. There are 93,000 Numidians and Carthaginians. And now they're trying to have these truce talks. And each day, in good faith, Scipio and his generals go to the camps of the Carthaginians. And the talks are going real well, and it seems like it's going well, and the goodwill has gotten to the point where they actually leave their camps open. And what will happen is Scipio will come over, and he'll come over with their delegation, and they'll all day long they'll be negotiating with the Carthaginians, and they bring a lot of their slaves with them, as they always do. And the Romans, no one really pays any attention to the slaves of the Romans. And the Roman slaves just walk around, and they're doing their thing. But if you look at the Roman slaves, they don't walk like slaves. They're really standing erect. They're pretty confident. These are Roman officers in disguise. Each day, Scipio is wandering around. All these men are wandering around the Carthaginian camps, looking at everything, mapping down everything. They come back every night and they map out every square inch of the Carthaginian camp. It's winter quarters in Carthage, very mild winters. So if you have 93,000 people, they have very small little homes with thatched roofs. That's how the Carthaginians are quartered. Well, this goes on for a while, and while all the maps are complete, the Romans go back, and Scipio sends word, you know what? After second thought, peace isn't a good idea. That night, that very night at about 10 o'clock, the Romans sneak in, the gates are still open, and they fire their fire arrows over the walls, these thatched roofs. 93,000, they're firing the fire arrows, everything catches on fire. The Carthaginians and Numidians are running on their underwear with buckets of water trying to put this out. The Romans invade. 90,500 people are killed that night. 90,500 people with hardly a loss to a Roman. The Romans absolutely devastate those two armies. Is this fair? War is not fair. I mean, this is a fight for the death. This is a fight to the death. They absolutely destroy those Carthaginian armies. So what happens now? Carthage sends word to Hannibal, come back to North Africa. And all the way, legend has it, all the way home, Hannibal is beating his head on the prow of that ship saying, why didn't I take Rome? Why didn't I take Rome? Hannibal comes back. He is now in North Africa. And as he's in North Africa, now he wants to take some time. He wants to take some time to train his army. But Scipio now is probably one of the master generals up there with Caesar, Alexander the Great, Scipio. You never hear about Scipio because we are fascinated with famous losers. We are. We're fascinated with General Lee. Well, General Grant kicked his butt. We like Napoleon. Duke of Wellington destroyed Napoleon. We like Hannibal. Scipio rocked Hannibal's world, right? We like the romantic loser. It's just the way it's something about human beings. Okay. I'm going to get this. So what we have here is we have Scipio has now come down. You've got Hannibal in North Africa, and Hannibal wants to wait to train his army, but Scipio goes for the jugular, man. He goes at Carthage, he cuts off all the resources, and he besieges them. He makes the Carthaginians come out to fight. We are going to fight, you have no doubt. So now Hannibal has got to come forward. So this is the big battle of Zama. So they're all coming, about 40,000 each. on the plains of North Africa. And what you have is Scipio, his troops are lined up, Hannibal, his troops, and in front, he has about 85 elephants. I mentioned last time, 85 elephants. These elephants, I mentioned as well, these aren't the circus elephants. These aren't this isn't cute Dumbo. These are tanks, man. These things are absolutely hardened. They stomp people. They actually are part of the strategy. They are fearsome, terrifying weapons. 85 of these in the front of the lines. The first thing the Carthaginians want to do, they're going to run these elephants at the Romans. But the Romans are smart. They have figured this out. What the Romans do, they just open their lines and the elephants run straight through. The elephants are smart. In one of my first books, I had to do quite a bit of research on elephants. These animals, they would know more run into a field of spears than we would. They're smart animals, right? So the Romans open up the lines and the elephants go right through because they want to get the heck out of there. The drivers are doing everything they can and the elephants just go. So now that strategic advantage is gone. The armies come together. The armies, it's just a savage, savage day. Historians say that just the blood and the gore and slipping on bodies, just awful, and they're at it all day, all day. The big difference is this time the Carthaginian cavalry is much, much inferior. The Romans' cavalry push the Carthaginian cavalry from the field. The Romans are able to sweep around and they destroy the Carthaginian force. Utterly destroy the Carthaginian force at Zama. And here's the difference. After Cannae, the Romans lost 70,000 people. The Romans would never give up. After Zama, the Carthaginians yield. The Carthaginians, they're done. We've had enough. When Hannibal actually went back to Carthage itself, one of the Carthaginian senators apparently was giving a speech about we have to resist. Hannibal grabbed him by the throat, threw him to the ground, and said, "We're done. We are done." Carthage falls after all of that time. Carthage falls. Now, I keep coming back to Way Wiki. So, how does the story end? There's I want to tell you actually how Carthage falls itself, but Hannibal is dogged by Roman agents. He keeps going east. They keep following him. He ends up committing suicide, taking poison rather than being taken by Roman agents. Scipio, very much like our modern political thing, the politicians back at home in Rome were so jealous of his success, they accused him of embezzlement. That sound familiar? They accused him of embezzlement. He was supposed to bring his books forward to the Senate to show that he was credible. He brought his books to the Senate and tore them up and said, "I'm out." Went and he died in exile himself, Scipio, after all of that. So Rome, I want to tell you how actually Carthage falls. So Carthage now become a subservient state of Rome. There's reparations they pay, and Rome always makes their strategic agreements knowing that they can start another war anytime they want. Rome never ever fought an unjust war. Every war they fought, to their mind, was just by the gods and by law. So the Romans build this piece of this treaty, and the Carthaginians have to pay these enormous reparations. For 50 years, they have to pay these reparations. And it becomes an enormous stream of income for Rome, right? Rome has built in the clause that Carthage can never fight a war outside Africa at all. And if Carthage fights a war, because they're sort of sovereign but under Rome's leadership. If they fight a war in North Africa, it has to be with the Roman people's permission. Well, all of a sudden, the 50 years now has just run out. It's been 50 years since the war, and the final Carthaginian payment has been made. Here's 50. Okay, so they've just paid their last. Carthage is now free of debt from Rome. Make sense? So it's 50 years later. They've paid everything they're supposed to pay to Rome. Well, now Rome strikes, right? Because they've paid all their money. So Rome, there is a neighbor of Carthage, which is always aggressive towards Carthage. The neighbor will attack Carthage. Carthage can't defend itself. It goes to Rome and says, can we fight back? And Rome says, no, we'll send an arbiter. Arbiter comes down, always finds in favor of the person that attacked Carthage, always. So Carthage, its patience breaks. They attack the person that attacked it. And Rome says, "Oh, you're in violation. We declare war on you." And Carthage says, "Whoa. They send somebody back. So we're sorry. What do we have to do?" Rome says, "You know what? Nope. We've declared war. It is what it is." And Carthage says, if we're at war, we surrender. We surrender. We're done. And they say, you know what? There's soldiers already on the way. That the generals are coming to Carthage. Talk with them. So the generals get there, and the Carthaginians, this huge walled city, Carthage, huge walled city. They send out their delegation, and the generals say, I understand you've surrendered. And the Carthaginians say, absolutely. Woe to the conquered. See where I'm going? The Carthaginians say, well, we surrendered. And the generals say, okay. As a sign of good faith, we want you to send out 300 hostages. All of your leading people, we want you to send their children to us. We're going to send them back to Rome for good keeping. So the Carthaginians, they're amongst all the crying and the weeping, they send out their children. Okay, they've done that. Now the Romans say, okay, now as a sign of good faith, you must unilaterally disarm. Every shield, every sword, every piece of armor, you must give it up. So the Carthaginians, they're holding their breath. Okay. That wagon loads of armor and of shields and of every weapon they have, they send out. Okay. The Romans said, we appreciate that. We have one last demand. You must leave Carthage. You must go. You're not allowed to live within 10 miles of the ocean. This is North Africa. This is hard. And the Carthaginians say, you can't do that. This is clearly against the spirit of our argument. And the Romans say, don't tell us about the spirit of the argument. You are Carthage. Carthage will survive. We are going to destroy your city. We are going to tear the city to the ground. And the Carthaginians now, the ambassadors go back in to tell the people, and the ambassadors are ripped limb from limb, literally by the people, and they shut the gates. And they say, we are not giving up. Now they shut the gates. The Carthaginians, with the last bit, they make weapons. They tear the bronze roofs off their temples to make shields. The women all cut off their hair to make the torsion elements for the catapults. They are going to fight. And the Romans now can't take Carthage. As much as they try, they can't take it. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And the Senate and the people of Rome are getting frustrated. They don't understand, why can't somebody take Carthage? Why can't they do it? So they find another person. They find the grandson of Scipio, another Publius Cornelius Scipio, also in his mid-20s. Will he take command? He goes down. This is the end of the Third Punic War. They go, and he rallies his troops, and after a heroic defense, they breach the walls of Carthage. And it is the most savage fighting. The real estate in Carthage was very, very expensive. If you can imagine apartment buildings back in the day, they had 4 or 5, 6-story buildings. And the Romans literally, when they invaded, would have to go in. They would hack their way into an apartment building, fight their way up 5 floors, throw a plank over to the next, run around the plank, and fight their way down, killing everybody. Absolutely the most savage. The entire city, block by block, apartment building by apartment building, was razed until all that was left was the temple of Baal. Remember Baal I talked about last time? It's just supreme God. They would sacrifice their infants to Baal in supreme moments. All that was there was Baal. Some of the soldiers, some of the aristocrats were there, and they wouldn't give up. They kept hammering them, but at the last moment, the leaders of Carthage came down and they surrendered. But the main general's wife, with their children, as legend says, stood on the walls of the temple, flames rising. And she told her others, the rest of the Carthaginians, you dogs, you how could you give up? We are Carthaginians. And she, as legend says, took her children's hands and jumped into the fires of Baal. And all of Carthage was destroyed. Romans know how to deal with their enemies. They tore down every building. They tore down the walls. And as they also sowed the fields with salt. You ever heard that before? They actually, as a thing of spite, put salt in the ground to make sure that nothing would ever grow there again. Very, very powerful. What I'm getting at is way wiki. I think any nation has to be very careful. You never, ever, ever surrender under any circumstances. If you surrender, if you are absolutely at the mercy of your enemies, way wiki. Any questions about the fall of Carthage? Yes, sir.
What happened to the elephants?
Well, what happened to the elephants? They actually, tragically, they were they're instruments of war. The Romans took them all out and killed every one of them in the desert because they didn't want them to be resurfaced as war elephants. I mean, those elephants, they would actually, imagine this, they would get the elephants drunk before a battle. As horrible as that is, they put out huge barrels of wine. You guys remember in college you drank too much and you thought you were tough? And it's called beer muscles. It's the same, but they would actually get the elephants just a bit intoxicated, so they lost inhibition and they would just drive them in. So it was just crazy. Yes, sir.
That reminds me of Winston Churchill. Never give up. Never give up.
That's what it's all about. Never, ever, ever give up. The Nazis promised the British that they would be lenient. Do you think that would have happened? Are you out of your mind? Any other questions?
And yet the Nazis stopped invading England. They just stopped. They could have, but they stopped.
Well, yeah. Yes, Jim.
The concept then of Carthage ended after that Third Punic War.
Yeah, the idea of Carthage, it ceased to be. I mean, in Rome also, they destroyed Carthage, they destroyed Corinth, Rome was the absolute superpower. Rome, at the end of the Second World War, the United States was in a position no country's ever been in. We had the atomic bomb, but the United States stepped back. We had brand new bombers that went from the factory to the junkyard. The Romans did not step back. You don't have to ask what the Romans would have done with the atomic bomb. We know what the Romans would have done with the atomic bomb, right? There was no more. They absolutely had no opposition, and their theory was destroy your enemy before they're your enemy. If there's any power out there that had the potential to be a power, we will divide and conquer and destroy them. Pretty brutal age. Any questions? Yes?
Are you going to come back and tell us how Rome fell?
If you'll have me, I'd love it. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom. That was wonderful. You know, there's some speakers that come and I look around the room and I think, are people sleeping right now? And then there's others like you, and I don't think that people could take their eyes off of you and the focus on the story. So thanks for being a good storyteller and being with us. Appreciate that. Our next guest that is with us is Lori Lynn Shandor. She's with Habitat for Humanity of Summit County, and she started with them fairly recently in September. So we're going to introduce her to the club. She's going to share with us an update as she gets started making her rounds to maybe many more Rotary clubs in the area. So let's have a warm Rotary welcome for Lori Lynn Shandor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, I'm not sure how you follow that up, so I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to say that I am also very passionate about what I do, but man, he's a great speaker. So typically, I would go through some of the history of Habitat International and things like that, but I do want to be respectful of your time, and I have a lot of updates about Habitat here in Summit County that I would like to tell you about. So I'm not going to go back to 1976 when Habitat was founded and all that type of stuff, but if anybody would like to know some of that history, grab me after, and I'm happy to share. Here in Summit County, Habitat was founded in the 1980s. We dedicated our first home here in Summit County in 1982. Since then, we just recently, last week, as a matter of fact, dedicated our 203rd home here in Summit County. It's an estimated economic impact of almost $5 million here in Summit County over those last 30 years or so. And we're very proud of that. This organization has grown from a relatively small, few $100,000 budget to what we do now, which is build about 10 homes a year. Now, if I leave here without doing anything else, I want to dispel two myths about Habitat. Now, these are things that maybe some people in here believe and maybe some people know. I know a lot of you stopped by and said that you volunteered with Habitat, so you may already know that these things aren't true. But we find universally people seem to think these things are true. And the first of those is that we were founded by the former President Jimmy Carter. That's actually not true. Now, him and his wife are huge supporters of Habitat International and Habitat affiliates, and they've done a great deal of work to not only physically build houses, but also to help promote the mission of Habitat. But they were not the founders. We're greatly appreciative of them, but we were actually founded by Millard and Linda, and now I'm suddenly drawing a blank on their last name. Well, anyway, I'll come back to that. Sorry about that. Again, I just started with Habitat, so thanks for helping me out there. The second is that Habitat for Humanity gives away homes. Habitat for Humanity does not give away homes. Habitat partners with families. We give a hand up, not a handout. So what that means is that Habitat, we are essentially three things, the way I like to explain it. We are a nonprofit organization here in Summit County that provides programs and education for future homeowners. We are also a mortgage company, and we are also a construction company. So what that means is when somebody applies to be a part of the Habitat program, they are required to do 250 hours of sweat equity. This means that they're actually out in the field working on their own home and working for other future homeowners' homes. Actually swinging hammers, raising walls, painting walls, hanging drywall, all of the things that go into building a home. They're also required to do 100 hours of education classes. This can look from budgeting, financial management, college, student loan education, as well as I was telling some folks that we are currently building a 600 square foot home in our warehouse over on Romeg Road that's actually going to have a kitchen, a basement, a bathroom, and all the other fixtures of its typical home, actually using the things that we put into our Habitat homes here in Summit County, where the homeowners will be able to receive education on basic home maintenance. So it can be everything from if a piece of siding comes off, how do you rehang that? If your pilot light goes out, how do you relight your pilot light? So on and so forth. Kind of those things that as a first-time homeowner, you might have no idea how to do. So they receive that type of education. Also, Habitat for Humanity all over the country, but us here in Summit County, we are our own mortgage company. So myself and another one of the employees, every person who applies to be a Habitat homeowner, we actually go through a mortgage application process with them. We hold our own mortgages. Our homeowners, whether their home was built 30 years ago or 3 days ago, they come to our office or they mail their mortgage payment to our office. We then use that money to reinvest and build future homes here in Summit County. So a lot of people don't realize that this actually isn't. This is a 30-year mortgage. Our homes have an average mortgage of somewhere between $110,000 and $140,000 over a 30-year period. 80% of those homes are built through volunteer hours, which is amazing. The home we dedicated last week had 197 volunteers for almost 1,200 hours. That's a huge accomplishment. And that's how we are able to keep our homes affordable. We provide those mortgages at a 0% interest. So I'm sure many of you here in this room have had mortgages, and imagine how much more affordable your payment would be if you paid no interest on your mortgage. And that's how we are able to offer the joy and the comfort of home ownership to folks in Summit County who may not qualify under a standard mortgage program. We're able to offer them some flexibility. We're able to work with them through some credit counseling over the course of the 1 to 3 years that they're in our program and get them to a place where they can comfortably and afford a mortgage payment as well as maintain that for the life of their home. And so we're getting people out of housing situations that are less than ideal. Maybe the housing is too small for the folks that live there, inadequate, leaking roofs, poor seals around doors and windows, things along those lines. So we're very happy about that. So just a few updates. We are currently building 4 homes here in Summit County right now. We build all winter long. Most of our homes our indoor work right now, we're doing painting, we're hanging drywall, we're doing trim work, things like that. But we do have a home that we just poured the foundation last month, and it's outdoor work all winter long. And you know, we don't stop just because the snow flies. We keep working. That's how we're able to build about 10 homes a year. So I encourage anybody, if you are looking for volunteer activities over the winter months, we encourage you to come think about Habitat. We find that some people don't think about volunteering with us in the winter months, but like I said, some of that is indoor work. We also have our warehouse, and we have a lot of indoor work that happens at our warehouse. The majority of the walls that are raised at our homes are built in our warehouse, and then they come assembled out to the build site, and the volunteers just have to raise the walls and put them in place. So we'll be building walls throughout the winter months as well. Also, I had mentioned to a few of you as I was meeting you here this morning, there's currently an opportunity through Rotary International and with a partnership through Habitat International where they're offering grants to local Habitat affiliates. So part of why I'm coming around and speaking to some of the Rotaries here in Summit County is not only to let you know that we're going strong. Like I said, we're building 4 houses currently. We have 8 more that are slated to break ground before the end of our fiscal year, and we have 27 partner families on the books right now that are waiting for their homes to be built. So we are very busy, but also there's an opportunity out there for the Rotaries of Summit County and Summit County Habitat for Humanity to partner together and bring some additional funding here through that partnership of Rotary International and Habitat International. I believe the last number I saw was grants up to $50,000. That would make a huge impact here for Habitat of Summit County. So I am asking if any of the Rotaries here in Summit County are interested and willing to partner with us on that grant application in 2019. We'd love to have the support of as many Rotary clubs as we can get to get some of those funds here for our future homeowners in Summit County. Lastly, a couple people had asked me, not only this morning, but over the course of my last few months, is where does the majority of our funding come from? We have about 20 full-time staff that work in our Romig Road office, and about 50% of our operating budget comes from our Restore. Has anybody here ever been over to the Restore on Romig Road? So this is a great place if you've never been there. Folks who are remodeling, getting new furniture, things like that, will donate items to the Restore. These are typically construction type items, so they're remodeling their kitchen and they've removed their kitchen cabinets. They donate the old kitchen cabinets. Leftover tile from projects, leftover flooring, appliances, furniture, just about anything you can think of, they'll donate to the Habitat for Humanity Restore. We then sell that at a 70 to 90% discount off of retail prices, and that funds about 50% of our general operating budget doing that. We have a lot of volunteers in our Restore as well that help us to reduce the costs of running that store. And the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is if you have items to donate, not only will we come pick those items up, so if you have living room furniture, bedroom furniture, large items that you don't have a way to transport, you can call our office. We have trucks running 4 to 5 days a week that will come to your house, and movers will pick up those items and take them to the store so that you don't have to move them. Another thing is if you are preparing for a remodel and you want to donate some items, say you want to donate your kitchen cabinets, we actually have a team that will come out and remove those kitchen cabinets for you. So we will come out, we will do the work to remove them, make sure they're not damaged and still in great condition to be resold in our store. So you can call our office at any point in time and make arrangements to have those things done. We have one of the largest deconstruction programs here in Summit County. We have one of the largest ones in the country. So that means we're working with Summit County and the city of Akron to go out, and when a home is going to be torn down, Habitat will actually go in. We will take anything out that can be reused, recycled, or resold prior to them destroying the home. And that keeps those items out of the landfill. That actually goes to our Restore then to be resold, or we recycle it to, like I said, keep it out of the landfill. So that's a large project. We've done, I believe, 94 houses, and I think right now, last count I heard was we have 3 more houses slated to do before the end of our fiscal year to deconstruct at least 3 more houses, and that's if more don't come our way. So that's just a little bit about Habitat for Humanity here in Summit County. I did bring some materials. I'll actually go ahead and just set them on the front table, and if anybody is interested, please pick them up. I have some information on our Restore, some information on volunteering, and then we are currently looking for people who are interested in serving on some of our committees. These would be non-board positions, just some committee help. So if you or anyone you know might be interested in getting more engaged with Habitat, we'd love to have you serve on a committee. So thank you so much for having me, and I'll hang out for a little bit if anybody has questions.
Thank you, Lori Lynn. That was very educational. I don't know about you all, but I certainly did not know that the folks moving into those homes had to put 250 hours of sweat equity into it and 100 hours of education. I think that that's awesome, and thank you for further explaining that economic impact piece that you mentioned kicking it off. Wonderful. Tom Page, we're ready for you, sir. Tom was ready to go right off the bat this morning. I said, hey, Tom, we're going to have to push your update to the end.
Well, there's no update, so if you have any forms, money, see me after the meeting. And next week is our last week for ordering roses and caramel corn.
Wonderful. So raise your hand if you've turned in anything to Tom Page. That's awesome. Round of applause for everyone. Wonderful. Keep that going. Another thing that I wanted to do before we close out this morning, I wanted to have a moment of silence for our 41st president, George H.W. Bush. And previous to that, I just wanted to open the floor if anybody had any comments or memories or anything that they'd like to share about President Bush. Rich, absolutely.
George and I went skydiving together. No, I had a chance to meet him and Barbara at Lake Forest Country Club when they came to support DeWine's whatever he was running for back then. And really, I mean, just a down-to-earth guy, shook my hand. I think anybody else that was there, probably knowing George Snyder, he was there, or somebody else. But the bottom line is that anybody else was there would see that this guy was a down-to-earth kind of, I mean, he was past president at that time, but he just was really, he made you feel just like on the same level as him. So, quality human being.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Rich. I'll make a quick comment here. I wasn't born yet when President Bush took office. So back in, I was born in June of '89. So I didn't really have much experience with President Bush. But if you'll bow your heads, and we'll have a quick moment of silence here. Thank you. Keep sharing updates, photos. We got some great photos from Santa on the Green, which was a lovely event. Ed Sogan had to hop out. He's got a follow-up update to wrap up that club project. But thank you to those of you that came out over the weekend. We had a great event. Lots of families came out, and really the ultimate impact, there that we're providing is that special memory. There's people that come, and they come year after year. I showed up, I think, at 8:10, and everyone, was out volunteering, and they were already through 60 of the numbers. There was a line that started before 8 a.m. on Saturday, and that's an event that we put on. So good job with that. Keep sharing photos, updates on stuff that you have going on. We're going to have a board meeting following next week's meeting. Next week we have a special meeting. We'll have breakfast over here, and then we have a holiday concert over in the auditorium. Also, we have a special WRA Interact Charter presentation. So come out to that if you've got folks that you'd like to invite. Come on out. We'll have extra food. Other updates, Liz?
Well, we have 2 of those widows that we'll be making a presentation to.
Wonderful.
Were Rotarians.
Wonderful. Thank you for coordinating that. And Liz is also, she extended out an invitation to many other widows. And if they are unable to attend, I think we're going to send out a nice card or a note around the holidays. Gail?
Thank you. I just wanted to point out we will start the meeting in the auditorium, in the community room next week. So we'll have the concert right at 7:30, and then we come back here. for breakfast afterwards, okay? So I just, the setup crew or whatever else needs to know we need to be over there for the concert.
Wonderful. Thank you for that clarification.
And any
Definitely.
extra guests, maybe you want to get a head count on that too, bringing spouses or family members or employees for the concert?
Certainly. Yes, please do let me know if you plan on bringing some folks. We do have some extra food lined up, but we'll do our best to kind of match that up. So let me know if you're thinking about inviting somebody. So I'll look forward probably, by 3 p.m. this afternoon to seeing an email from each of you with a couple of guests that you're going to be bringing. Hey, I had to throw it in there. And with that, I hope that you have an amazing week. It is slippery out there. It is cold, so walk slow, be safe. We're going to wrap up with a Rotabuck raffle. Payout $14 and the jackpot $193. Lori Lynn, would you do us the honors here? All right, the winning ticket, last four, 7996. 7996. Mike Swain. Congratulations.
Win it again? Not today.
Okay. Not today.
We'll give you back your marble. Back your marble.
No, don't do that.
Thank you for everything that you do. Again, be safe out there and be the inspiration.
Have a good one.